got kicked out of Starbucks for asking NASA employee questions because he's lying. You ever hear about the flat Earth? Did you know what's in the Bible? That the Earth's flat? You can't touch me. Maybe get your wheels turning about the Earth could in fact be a flat stationary plane, and we're being lied to by an elite cabal of satanic sorcerers that call themselves scientists, and they masquerade telling you that, you know, we visited Jupiter this week or we visited Mercury last week, and really it's just a show. And they're not scientists, they're actually enemies of humanity. And if you really love people, you'll research the truth and you'll try and find out what's going on behind this ball Earth deception. And a lot of people don't know the UN logo is a flat Earth map. So just do some research. The deception runs deep.
The Earth is not flat.
We don't. It's flat.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's a leading astronomer in America,
I'm Neil deGrasse Tyson, bitch.
tells us that the Earth is not a perfect circle. It is actually an oblate spheroid. It's squashed and wider at the equator. Yeah.
So, Earth, throughout its life, even when it formed, it was spinning, and it got a little wider at the equator than it does at the poles. So it's not actually a sphere. It's oblate, and officially it's an oblate spheroid. That's what we call it. But not only that, it's slightly wider below the equator than above the equator.
A little chubbier.
A little chubbier.
Yeah.
Chubby's a good way. It's like pear-shaped.
Can you please help us? Can you please help us?
So Neil, can you please help us? Can you save the world from these parasite mind thinkers?
Yeah, again, there's some missing education. It's a failure of the educational system.
What is gravity?
You have no idea. Okay, next question.
Wow.
No, here's the difference. We can describe gravity. We can say what it does to other things. We can measure it, predict with it. But when you start asking, like, what it is, I don't know.
So did I accidentally ask a deeper question than I meant to?
Yeah, no, you were meant to ask deep questions in life. So to say, what is it? I think Einstein, in an Einsteinian answer, we would say gravity is the curvature of space and time. And objects will follow the curvature of space-time, and we interpret that as a force of gravity. That's probably the best answer I can give to a what is gravity question, or why is there gravity. That's the best I can do there. I think that's a good start. And I can also say that Einstein noted that matter tells space how to curve, space tells matter how to move.
What the hell did you just say?
If gravity is credited with being a force strong enough to hold the world's oceans, buildings, people, and atmosphere stuck to the surface of a rapidly spinning ball, then it is impossible for gravity to also simultaneously be weak enough to allow little birds, bugs, and planes to take off and travel freely, unabated in any direction.
Plain. None of it makes sense. The problem is that we're taught as children, this ball Earth lie. And, you might ask as a child, what about the people in Australia? They're standing on the bottom of the globe, won't they fall off? And your teacher says, no, gravity. And you go, oh, okay. And you never go back to that question. But when you go back to it as an adult and start looking at it with a critical eye, right, the whole thing falls apart.
You can imagine the globe squashed down, with Antarctica being the perimeter around the sides. The other planets and moons in our solar system don't exist. There's not a solar system. You can't go and land on the moon. You can't go and land on these planets. They're not there. This outer space sci-fi thing is exactly that. It's science fiction. The Earth is at the center, and the moon and the sun revolve around the Earth. That's all NASA garbage, so they can siphon more money and keep throwing garbage CGI pictures at us. The way we see it is it's an enclosed system. There's water above, there's the firmament or the dome. There's no leaving it, so you can't fall off the edge, essentially. The only reason why you would need gravity as a theory is to convince people that you can stick to the bottom of a spinning ball upside down. There's no need for a magical force. Gravity is unnecessary. And
they said we live on a spinning ball, perfect sphere. They've been fucking with our minds, man. Playing with it, man. For a very long time.
If the government or NASA had said to you that the Earth is stationary, imagine that. And then imagine we are trying to convince people that no, it's not stationary. It's moving forward at 32 times rifle bullet speed and spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. We would be laughed at. We would have so many people telling us, you're crazy, the Earth's not moving. We would be ridiculed for having no scientific backing for this convoluted moving Earth theory. And not only that, but then people would say, oh, then how do you explain a fixed calm atmosphere and the sun's observable movement? How do you explain that? Imagine saying to people, no, the atmosphere is moving also, but is somehow magically velcroed to the moving Earth. The reason is not simply because the Earth is stationary. So what we are actually doing is what makes sense. We are saying that the moving Earth theory is nonsense. The stationary Earth theory makes sense, and we are being ridiculed. You've got to picture it being the other way around to realize just how ridiculous the situation is.
I mean, there's no questions around it, folks. I mean, we live on a ball, man, and we should be able to prove we live on a ball. And if we lived on a ball, we would know it. We would know it, man. We would know it.
It is claimed that the other planets are spheres, and so therefore Earth must also be a sphere. Firstly, Earth is a plane, not a planet, so the shape of these planets in the sky have no bearing on the shape of the Earth beneath our feet. Secondly, these planets have been known for thousands of years around the world as wandering stars, since they differ from the other fixed stars in their relative motions only. When looked at with an unprejudiced naked eye or through a telescope, the fixed and wandering stars appear as luminous disks of light, not spherical terra firma. The pictures and videos shown by NASA of spherical terra firma planets are all clearly fake computer-generated images and not photographs.
Okay, I just wanted to draw, council members, thank you for listening. I wanted to draw the public's attention to what may be an extremely egregious example of malfeasance, and just to help illustrate the gravity of the situation, imagine if the federal government gave $19.5 billion to Hollywood. I think we'd all be pretty upset by this. Well, there is a growing body of evidence that the International Space Station is not in outer space, but it's being filmed in a desalinated pool down here on Earth, and it's being falsely misrepresented. And this started with this phenomenon known as bubbles in space. If you search for it, you'll see many of these so-called spacewalks, which have been falsely misrepresented as live, as has been exposed many times on Facebook when they do their live ISS feeds, bubbles out in space. Well, there's not supposed to be water up there. And it is known that the astronauts do train in these big underwater tanks. And so this body of evidence, and it's not just bubbles in space, there are harnesses or green screens, evidence of flights that are actually on parabolic flights, not in space. And if this is true, it's a big deal, because that's a lot of money that could be used for our own infrastructure or schools, whatever. So I'm drawing the attention to it because I think it's something that deserves to be looked at, because if it's true, these bubbles in space might represent the smoking gun in probably the biggest hoax since global warming. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for.
It's funny that we said that this is what we're in right now. This is what we're on before any instrument approved. Until, boss, can we do it? It's funny, back in the 60s when they went to the moon, this is the first time we actually had like an instrument of flight to actually go high enough to actually fucking check out if what we agreed to 500 years ago was real. So if they were wrong after 500 years, the question is, would they tell you? University institutions, physics, the Royal Society in London, that supports NASA, Newtonian physics, why objects move on a ball spinning 1,000 miles an hour while it's going 26,000 miles around the sun. It's basically the model we accept you right now. I don't feel it's spinning 1,000 miles an hour right now. That's because of gravity. Hey, gravity, what's that? That's the thing you can't feel. Oh yeah, can you prove that in an equation? Yeah, I can prove that in an equation. It took Newton like a book, 3 times thicker than the Bible, and he still couldn't finish his equation on how to prove gravity. He would try to prove gravity when you read Newton's book of Principia through like Stephen Hawking. Well, if you even find the original book, he would prove by saying that everything started with the word if. If you fucking take Newton's book of like if the earth is a ball and objects are being thrown this way, blah, 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 you know, that means that we're spinning at this amount of velocity and you can't feel it, and why the objects don't go flying off into the universe is because of gravity, because of a vacuum system of air pressure. I mean, he went to hyperbole, into ifs. I mean, if you were to highlight every time the word if came up in Newton's book of physics, you could fucking use it as a flashlight in a dark room, man. It's like if you fucking get out of the cave with the amount of times if is highlighted in his fucking book on physics. It's like if is here's like a perfect example of them landing on the moon. I mean, it's proof right there. This is an official NASA photo of the first Apollo 11 lunar module landing on the moon. I mean, it's right there. This is proof, man. It's the picture's right there. It's landing on the moon. But the only problem I have with this picture is that it's taken from the moon. I don't know what the big deal was with being the first guy on the moon. It seems the camera crew was already there. The fucking tripod. Camera A, B, C.
This world is very different from what most people think it is. There are very powerful people who essentially rule this world right now. And the ordinary person is a slave in this world. And slaves aren't educated. You know, they're taught what they need to, or you know, they need to know. That's it. They're not taught truth. They're taught what they need to know. And so you're taught enough so that you can, you know, do the paperwork and operate the machinery, but you're not meant to know what's really going on, because that's the power they have over us. They know what's going on, what, you know, how this world works. We don't, so they can control us.
I talk to people and I say, why is it that you believe that the earth is round? Round meaning spherical in this instance. Why is it that you think the earth is a ball? And most people, the most common answer that I receive is, there's pictures of Earth from space. Duh. Well, it so happens that I used to think the same thing. I used to think there were all sorts of images and pictures and videos of the Earth spinning in outer space, and that's why I believed it. Come to find out, when you look into it, NASA admits that they photoshopped their images. They admit that their images are CGI composites.
There's artistry to creating the world.
What I imagine it to be. Unfortunately, I'm not an astronaut. I've never been to space. But I've looked at these images over and over again, trying to sort of get the essence of it. It is photoshopped, but it's has to be. It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
Another reason people think that the Earth is a ball is they claim that they have seen the curvature from a plane. Now, the average airplane flies at an altitude of 35,000, maybe 40,000 feet up. And I find it strange that you can take an amateur balloon to 120,000 feet up, and without a fisheye lens, there is no curve to be found. So how would you see the curvature of the Earth?
You see Photoshop?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And if those of you who think this technical difficulty was planned and think I'm scamming you, go do it for yourself. Because you're going to find the exact same thing. I got nothing to hide here. This is live on the air, okay? I'm going to zoom in on the Earth in Photoshop. You see the Earth?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to go to Image, Adjust, Levels, and I'm going to bring the levels over here. And I'm going to bring the levels up. Uh-oh. What is that?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, wow. Why is there a square box around the Earth allegedly taken from the scientists on the moon in Apollo 17? And people wonder why I don't trust NASA. That's why I don't trust NASA. I mean, they're always out there saying, you know, Rob, everybody's trying to show you stuff from space and you keep rejecting it. This is why I reject it. These guys are liars. You know?
Slowly I became more and more aware that the flat Earth not only accounts for all the conundrums involving the globe model, but also lacks the preconceived fallacies which I took to the flat Earth table like so many pieces of ammunition. And as my ammunition failed, one by one proving to be duds, I kept reassuring myself, don't worry, John, you're on a giant globe spinning around the sun at breakneck speed hurling through space. No matter what evidence I seemed to find in favor of the flat Earth, there was always this nagging rationalization in the back of my mind which comforted me, with images of our little blue world 3 doors down from the sun. I started trying to find more and more information on the flat Earth, really to find something that would confirm my better judgment, and I use the term loosely. So I sort of became obsessed with it. I started researching everything I could prove, one way or another, just to ensure that I'm understanding reality property, because there was a conflict here. And one day, it finally hit me. The empirical preponderance of evidence only points to a flat Earth. And the very same evidence flies in the face of the globular speck of dust hurling through space around the sun. One by one, all of the preconceived fallacies I had learned from the old wives' tales became obvious fiction, and all of the evidence, meaning facts, indeed proved that the globe was a hoax.
The other thing that's about the spinning Earth is looking at the stars. Now, directly above the axis of spin is the pole star, Polaris, okay, directly over the North Pole. And we're told that the reason that all the stars spin around the North Star is because the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. Okay, seems to make sense, because if you put a long exposure camera pointing at the North Star, you'll see the stars will make perfect circles around, perfect star trails. The only problem is the Earth is also orbiting the Sun at 67,000 miles an hour. Okay, the Sun is moving, dragging the Earth and all the planets up that way or that way at 600,000 miles an hour. So why do we see perfect circles? You know, because that's the slowest speed, that's slowest motion in that mix, and yet the Earth is moving 67 times faster that way and 600 times faster that way. So you should see the stars do all sorts of strange motions, but you don't. You only see them make these perfect circles. That tells me that it's the stars that are moving, not the Earth.
I like to talk about the movements of the sun. I like to talk about the shadow on the moon, as it were, just along the lines of holding a ping pong ball up, trying to show that this is the right amount of shadow right on the moon concerning the sun's reflection. They want to talk about all sorts of stuff having to do with what's going on in the sky, when we know between us the very basis of this whole argument, whether or not it's flat, whether or not we're on a globe. Where is the curvature? No, we need to look, as far as the stars go, when they go into their retrograde, I mean, how do you explain that on a flat Earth? Where's the curvature? Well, explain how plate tectonics works. Cause I mean, how does that work on a flat Earth? There's no curvature. Well, actually, you don't understand the physics of how an eclipse works, because when the moon's over here, the sun's right there. You just don't understand how light works, because the light bends around the atmosphere. There's no curvature.
That is true science when approached and practiced sincerely and genuinely. It supports a level and motionless plane 100% of the time. There has never been one experiment that proves that the Earth is in motion. When you try to find the curvature of the Earth, it's nowhere to be found, unless you're looking at footage from GoPro cameras that have fisheye lenses, Hollywood movies, or NASA propaganda. We didn't wake up and go, I'm gonna be a flat earther. That's gonna be fun. That's gonna be so much fun. People are gonna hate me. People are gonna disrespect me all the time and try to embarrass me and talk trash non-stop. Family members are gonna disown me. Friends are gonna stop talking to me. This is gonna be great. Let's do it. That's not what happened. We looked into it. I said it in the segment, all the people who have gone mindlessly through life, never thinking about what we live on. We hear about flat Earth and we're like, what? Then we start looking into it, and then we come to the conclusion that it's true, because you have to put in the effort.
Are you really in space still?
Yeah, because the air proves that you're in space.
I don't know, we're going to have to
check
do
this.
something for
Check
you.
the man with the stripy top. Look, he grabs the wire above him. Now check the man on the right. With his right arm, he grabs the wire. Did you see it? Now check in slow motion. The man on the right, look at his right arm. He's grabbing him to stabilise him. Then look at the man behind him with the stripy top on. Now he's looking up and he's grabbing the wire. Look, he's looking for the wire to grab it. Yeah. Check that out. He's grabbing the wire there. Look, he's looking up because he sees the wire moving about and he's grabbing it to stabilise it. Look. Now check the man on the right with the USMC t-shirt. Check his arm. Watch this. Check his arm. Look, his arm goes to grab him, look. But he doesn't grab him, he grabs the wire. Look, there's nothing there. But he's grabbing something and it's tugging his trousers up. And then check him on the left. He looks down to see. Look, he's checking it out himself. Yeah? You wanted proof, you've just got proof there. If you don't accept this, then you are just absolutely brainwashed. This is absolute proof that they are using wires on the space station, or the fake space station. Busted wide open. Your hoax has been exposed. You deceiving little snakes.
It would be very simple indeed to just silence everybody and put an end to this topic once and for all, turn the Hubble round and show us Earth in real time, zooming in onto a place so that we can see what's happening at that place, and we know that there is something up there looking down on us from space. But they will not do it. They can't do it. It doesn't exist.
Astronomers in 1996 attempted to do something extraordinary. They pointed the Hubble Space Telescope into a part of the sky that seemed utterly empty, a patch devoid of any planets, stars, and galaxies. This area was close to the Big Dipper, a very familiar constellation, and the patch of sky was no bigger than a grain of sand held out at arm's length. This was a somewhat risky move by the scientists. After all, observing time on this telescope is in very high demand, and some questioned whether it would be wasted trying to look at nothing. There was a real risk that the images returned would be as black as the space at which it was being pointed.
I guess this is the photo of the Hubble telescope taking a picture of itself. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. That's an authentic photo of the Hubble telescope out there doing its job. Isn't that amazing how they could take a photo of the thing taking photos?
The etymology of the word planet actually comes from the late Old English planet, or from Old French planet, from Latin planeta, from Greek planetes, planetae, wandering stars, or to wander of unknown origin, to spread, or notion of spread out, from Latin planum, flat surface, plane, level, plane. They just added a T to our Earth plane, and everyone bought it.
Okay, so here's the picture of the Earth from space. There it is. Since you were a kid, you've seen this image. But you've never seen it from that point of view. You've never seen that with your eyes from that scale of a model, that point of view, from outside of the planet's surface.
I mean, anybody who has Photoshop can just go to the NASA website, download the photo, do exactly what I did, see for yourself. Now, I think they've gotten better at some of them, where the masking that they're using is not as obvious, or even not there at all. But this one clearly was a pasted something on a backdrop. But yet we're told that this is NASA on the moon. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. And then when you look at all the other, so that calls in question the most famous picture, because it's the same people, Apollo 17, that took the most famous picture. Then you got other pictures like this, the blue marble, right, that come out. Okay, well, there's a big problem with the blue marble, and I'm going to zoom in here and show you what the problem is. These are all composite images where they are really not very good at Photoshop because they're using the Photoshop clone tool to replicate clouds. This cloud is a copy of this cloud. See the formations? They're identical. Identical formations, side by side. Wow. Right? These right here, side by side, side by side. See this kind of W-looking shape right here, replicated right here. This cloud is exactly the same as that cloud. You know, same clouds right there, and same thing on the other side of the world. They got the same thing going on. They got careless here. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the same formations replicated right there. These two replicated, same exact formations right here. This right here is clone of that right there. I mean, really? So you're telling me that we could take pictures of Jupiter and Saturn, huge, massive planets, and now we're out going to Pluto, but we don't have one legitimate picture of the Earth from space that's not a composite? Really? You know, this is where, okay, why, Rob, why are you looking into this? This is why.
The experts at NASA, however, claim your common sense everyday experience is false on all counts. To begin with, they say the Earth is not flat but a big ball, not stationary but spinning around 19 miles per second. They say the Sun does not revolve around the Earth as it appears, but Earth revolves around the Sun. The Moon, on the other hand, does revolve around the Earth, though not east to west as it appears, rather west to east, and the Sun is actually 400 times larger than the Moon and 400 times farther away. You can clearly see they are the same size and distance. You can see the Earth is flat, you can feel the Earth is stationary, but according to the gospel of modern astronomy, you are wrong and a simpleton worthy of endless ridicule if you dare to trust your own eyes and experience.
This is an amazing monumental sort of feat of space exploration. This is the Galileo satellite. Full authentic NASA imagery.
This film you're making now, what is it?
This is a film trying to prove that Apollo 11 happened.
Does it have a name? I mean, do you have a name for it yet, or you?
I'm calling it Did We Go?
Did We Go? Okay, okay.
Doesn't have it either. The Smithsonian doesn't have it. Johnson doesn't have it.
Right. We've been unable to track it down. I mean, we don't know where this telemetry data ended up, and we don't know what path it may have taken. So, unfortunately, I'm afraid I can't really give you much of a clue as to where this data ended up and whether it still exists or not.
You know what's crazy about the moon is the hardest shit ever accomplished, the greatest, by the human race. The greatest accomplishment ever was landing on the moon, right? Right? So you would think, holy shit balls.
I don't think it is.
No, listen. Okay, but let's just, at the time.
At the time.
No
I
one's
think the
done it
internet is the biggest.
Okay, but I'm just talking about like a physical achievement. 3 dudes, they got shot up in a rocket. They were in a orbiter, and then the orbiter shot out the lunar, like the LEM, and then it lands. They played golf, went doombug riding, did donuts in the sand. They take pictures, they get back in, take off, dock with that orbiter, and then fly back. That's the hardest shit ever. No one died. And dude, can you imagine that second mission 6 months later? They did it again when they had to break the news that they were going to use different astronauts.
And they just start making stuff up. Yeah. Like that Neil Armstrong guy. Have you seen him on the talk shows?
Neil Armstrong, you mean the first man to walk on the moon?
Talk about a fish story.
Yeah.
Man, and they're buying it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The Challenger disaster in, I believe it's 1986, the Challenger exploded just after takeoff and killed 7 astronauts. But it turns out that 6 of the astronauts are still alive, and most of them are using their original names. And you can find pictures of them. They're using the same names, and they're doing ordinary jobs now. Teachers, lecturers, lawyers, whatever. But they're still alive.
This theory from the government and NASA that the Earth is rotating and orbiting and leaning over and wobbling is absolute nonsense, and yet people are clinging to it tightly like a teddy bear. They just can't bring themselves to face the possibility that the Earth is stationary, though all evidence shows it. We feel no movement, the atmosphere hasn't been blown away, we see the sun move from east to west. Everything can be explained by a motionless Earth without bringing in all these assumptions to cover up previous assumptions gone bad.
The other thing is, after Admiral Byrd came back after his last expedition, Antarctica was sealed off, and both America and the Russians started firing nuclear missiles straight up. Now, in America, that was called Project Operation Fishbowl, and it came under something called Project Dominic. Well, Fishbowl makes sense because it seems like Admiral Byrd found the edge of the dome, okay, while he was out there. And as soon as he left there, they started firing missiles straight up, I believe, to try and test how far that dome went. If you look at the footage of these explosions, what you'll see is an explosion. Well, when a bomb goes off in midair, it's a fireball. It expands in all directions and mostly up. Okay. And if you look at these explosions on Operation Fishbowl, they explode outwards in a ring, which means it's exploding against something because it can't rise with the heat. So it's exploding against something and exploding outwards. Okay. In the middle of the explosion, you'll see it glows, hot, and then it cools over time. So it looks to me like they were exploding against a dome. Now, I said it was Operation Fishbowl, obviously Fishbowl, but there's a chap called Rob Skiba who discovered that the Project Dominic, the word Dominic means of the Lord, Fishbowl of the Lord. So I believe they clearly know that we're in an enclosed system, and Admiral Byrd found the edge, and they've tested to see how far it goes up.
Our mission as the Civilian Space Exploration Team is to be the first civilian team in history to launch a rocket that reaches space.
All systems are go for launch.
Minus 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
this is the universe. And
Complete universe.
Yes, this system is the
Is
complete
everything.
Is everything. Everything that NASA has put out is CGI, is fake. Okay, you know, people say, I think you mentioned it. You know, if you look out into the universe, you see that the moon is round, you know, spherical, and the planets are spherical, and so why are we flat? Well, how do you know that the planets and the stars are spherical? You know, all you get is, if you look for a telescope, you see a flat disk. If you think you see a spherical shape there, well, it needs two eyes to resolve 3D. If you're looking for a telescope, you can't see anything in 3D. It's going to be flat anyway. So all you see is a flat blob of light. It's only NASA that's giving you these beautiful pictures of so-called planets and stars. Yeah. So it's a fallacy to say, well, everything else out there is spherical, so we must be. You know, how this is special. You know, so why? It's like saying a basketball is round, so why isn't the court round? You know, it's a fallacy.
We choose to go to the moon.
The moon landing being a hoax, which it certainly was. Why would they fake the moon landing? I knew there was something about Antarctica, that like Hitler was really interested in Antarctica, but then they just kind of sanctioned it off with the Antarctic Treaty, and I was like, why is all that? And I started looking into it further. I actually studied physics in college. If I don't make any assumptions, what can I assert from the laws of physics? And it turns out what we call laws, which are not laws, they're just theories: heliocentric theory, Big Bang theory, you know, macroevolution, Darwinian evolution theory, and they didn't really have scientific evidence. But then they started teaching us this as fact in school. You know, we all want to believe that we live in a good, wholesome world where people don't lie, where we're not lied to since birth, and that everything we learn in school is correct. And, you know, people just want to believe that.
Because, again, on a flat map, the South Pole, the continent of Antarctica, is the ring around the Earth. So, you know, you can't fly over the ring and get anywhere. That's why we're not allowed to go there. I mean, think about it. It's the only treaty that's you know, all these countries have signed and never broken and completely agreed on. It's the only one. You know, what treaty is there that everybody's agreed on? We're being kept away from it for a reason. You know, they have some scientific bases there, yeah, and literally it's controlled by the military. If you try and go there by yourself, you'll be sort of picked up and escorted back. There was a guy called Jarls Anderhoy who tried to take a mission to the Antarctica, and he was picked up and taken back by the military. It's a good reason, because they don't want you finding out what's beyond. Admiral Byrd he actually did four expeditions. And most of them were military expeditions with huge military groups, you know, thousands of people, you know, planes, boats, the works. And yes, he confirms in an interview that he discovered a continent as big as the continental United States out there. That was with warm water lakes and mountains and everything. That was completely uninhabited. And he described it as the other side of the South Pole to Middle America. So on the globe, that means it would be somewhere in the Indian Ocean. There's a huge continent that nobody knows about. So yeah, there's more going on than meets the eye.
If Earth were a ball 25,000 miles in circumference, as NASA and modern astronomy claim, spherical trigonometry dictates the surface of all standing water must curve downward an easily measurable 8 inches per mile, multiplied by the square of the distance. This means along a 6-mile channel of standing water, the Earth would dip 6 feet on either end from the central peak. Every time such experiments have been conducted, however, standing water has proven to be perfectly level. Surveyors, engineers, and architects are never required to factor the supposed curvature of the Earth into their projects. Canals, railways, bridges, and tunnels, for example, are always cut and laid horizontally, often over hundreds of miles without any allowance for curvature. If the Earth were truly a sphere 25,000 miles in circumference, airplane pilots would have to constantly correct their altitudes downwards so as to not fly straight off into outer space. A pilot wishing to simply maintain their altitude at a typical cruising speed of 500 miles per hour would have to constantly dip their nose downwards and descend 2,777 feet, over half a mile, every minute. Otherwise, without compensation, in 1 hour's time, the pilot would find themselves 31.5 miles higher than expected.
So this idea of a ball Earth, theory of evolution, the Big Bang, is all about making us feel nothing so that we can be used. If everybody realized how special we all are, how unique every single life is, then this whole world would change overnight. We wouldn't allow ourselves to be used by this cabal.
This is the Galileo satellite. They never knew it would go that far and reach Jupiter. You know, they didn't know. It's the first time anything goes that far. It managed to get there. There's Jupiter. There's one of its moons. I mean, it's clearly lining up to take some really good photos of Jupiter. Immediately followed by a camera satellite. Perfectly composing the whole shot out in outer space. Amazing, eh? What the cameras could do when they fly. It's into outer space, a place we've never been to. That's amazing. Look at that. That's perfect. That's like the photo of the year, if you ask me. For a fucking satellite to be able to, like, you know, like wake up in outer space, we didn't even know we could do that. You know, and unbelievable. I give it to NASA. Let's go to another photo here. Another photo. This is good too. Oh, let's zoom in. I love that iMovie sort of effect. I'm really in the gas. But how am I supposed to go? Yeah, that's the Earth. From there, that point of view I've never seen. And it's funny when you click on Google Images, photo of the Earth, keep going. Because this is realistic. But you'll see 40 pages on Google. But it's always the same fucking photo. It's the same photo. They just changed the contrast. Check it out, keep going. Oh yeah, boom, 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 40 pages. Look closely. It's always the same. Oh, what is that?
Who wins with convincing us that the Earth is flat?
I would say in all of these, follow the money. NASA got somewhere in the order of $60 billion back in '69 to go to the moon. They've been continuing to get, I think they were getting $40 billion a year up until recently. Now they're only getting $20 billion. All the math doesn't lie. The heliocentric theory states that the Earth is a ball that has a curvature of 0.666 feet per mile squared. There's a lot of cases where if you see, across a lake that's 50 miles and you can see the city and most of the buildings, and you shouldn't be able to. They should be down hidden behind a curvature. Is the Earth moving? I mean, our common sense is that it's not. Our common sense is that we're stationary. If there's an earthquake, as we know in LA, we notice it. It doesn't just happen and, oh yeah, it's just, the Earth moving and it just happens all the time. No, we notice it.
But if the entire Earth is moving, then we wouldn't necessarily feel emotion, right? Like I don't feel like I'm moving when I'm in a plane because the entire plane is moving through the air.
Unless that plane goes up, goes down, or turns.
But your brain has three-dimensionalized, oh yeah, that's the Earth. How? Through repetition. Next image. How do we get to this point of the image? This is fucking funny. I think this is funny. Next image. Well, here's the first image that sold the whole thing. As you can see, that's clearly the universe. I mean, that's clearly the universe. I swear to God. I mean, there's the sun. I mean, I could recognize that thing. It's a bullseye. It's like a planet. It's an egg. Whatever. But there you go. You got each rung, the whole thing. 1482. This is when they came up with this idea. We are on that thing. It's a ball. Hey, we should go to the North and the South Pole. We didn't do it yet. It's a fucking ball. Hey, nobody's even jumped up high enough to see if it is a ball. You can't do that. We don't have planes yet. It's a ball. You know what? We adopted this whole model like 400 or 500 years before the airplane. 400 years before the airplane, pretty much. So it was like beginning of the 1900s. They went to the North Pole in the 1900s. This is 1482. Nobody went to the top of the globe, to the bottom, or flew up, or built a skyscraper.
You could throw a ball in a plane that's just moving straight and it would fall back in your hand. But if that plane starts turning, that ball is going to fly the opposite direction. The heliocentric theory doesn't state that the Earth is just moving in a straight line. It states that it's on a ball rotating like this as it rotates around the sun, as the sun rotates around the galaxy, as the galaxy rotates around the universe. And we're literally going millions of miles an hour right now, according to the heliocentric model. Not only that, but there's counter-rotating forces. So what we should experience is centrifugal force should be increasing, decreasing, increasing, decreasing. You know, my conclusion was that the universe is sort of magical. There's a magical quality to it because that's unexplainable by physics. So instead of actually applying empirical science, where we're observing, okay, is the Earth moving? Well, we can use an interferometer to determine whether it is, and it doesn't seem to be. So instead of just admitting that, what they did was they said, well, let's think of some math that can kind of explain what's happening here while we still hold on to this assumption that the Earth is a spinning ball moving through space.
Oh, and let's not even get into one of the most recent bloopers by NASA. Happened a few weeks ago. There was this massive CGI glitch while they were supposed to be recording live, showing that there was live editing going on during the recording. But let's talk about the exterior of this International Space Station. So, the orbital height of the International Space Station is said to be 250 miles up, away from the Earth's surface. Okay, 250 miles. So that leaves it right between the mesosphere and the exosphere. That puts it in a place called the thermosphere. The temperature of the thermosphere can reach up to 3,632 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, the ISS, one of the most commonly used materials of the ISS is 2219 T6 aluminum alloy. The melting temperature of aluminum is 1221 degrees Fahrenheit. The melting temperature of glass is 1538 degrees Fahrenheit. The melting temperature of steel is 2750 degrees Fahrenheit. The melting temperature of titanium is 3034 degrees Fahrenheit. Doesn't that mean that most of the external components of the ISS should be, I don't know, melted? That would pretty much be what happens. That's like, I don't know, taking an airplane made out of snow and flying that thing around in Texas in July. That's about how well that would work out, just to simulate on a common sense level.
We've got the technology now to easily prove the Earth is not a globe. It simply isn't, simply because there's no proof that it is, and every bit of proof that we have shows the opposite.
Well, the Bible has a very, very clear view of what this place is, and it matches that place more than it matches this. Okay, and what it says is the great deep is under just water. It's just deep water, and above the firmament is water. And you know, it says in Genesis that he separated the water below from the water above, and made a space, and then made dry land appear out of the water. So what's under the flat Earth? Well, it's water, and it just goes on. Again, I don't know for sure, because I've not been under there. I don't know what's past the outside of, or the you know, the first few hundred miles of Antarctica. But everything I've seen over the last year and a half tells me that that is true and this isn't.